Folks, I'd like to call to order this special meeting regarding potential downtown improvements and consulting. Ms. Lucina?
I wish to make the following announcement to show compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, known as Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of New Jersey, 1975. Notice of this meeting was given by sending a notice on August 10th, 2015 to the Star Ledger, Courier News, Scotch Plains Fanwood Times, stating that a special meeting of the Scotch Plains governing body would be held on August 18th, 2015 at 5 p.m. at the Scotch Plains Municipal Building Council Chambers, and by posting said notice on the township website and bulletin board in the municipal building and filing the same with the township clerk. If everyone would please rise for the pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Lucina, would you be so kind to call the roll?
Mrs. Cecchio? Here. Mr. Del Sordi?
Here.
Mrs. Gialanella? Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mayor Glover?
Here. Okay. Mr. Mirabella, by way of introduction to
Yes.
Our folks from Greener by Design.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Adam and company for coming here tonight to kind of, in my opinion, and collectively as the council opinion, to talk a little bit more about what you see for the downtown of Scotch Plains and the surrounding area. But also kind of to narrow down the focus. We started with 4 firms, now we're down to 2. Although I will say, for the benefit of council too, there is another firm that has emerged as someone interested in taking a look at. And that is a firm called Wallace, Roberts, and Todd. They did some work for the township several years ago, and I had an opportunity to meet with the mayor and talk to them a little bit, so I want to just set the proper expectations and transparency. So we may have them in at some point too to kind of talk about what they have to offer. But you know, we're delighted that you can make the time and talk a little bit more detail. I do recognize, Mayor. Can I have that one of those things? Usually people can hear me anyway. I realized the last time that we got together, we didn't have an awful lot of time to go into detail, and certainly have enough time for the council members and the mayor to ask questions as they have, and it was felt, in my mind, a little bit rushed. Although a valuable exercise, because we were able to kind of narrow the scope a little bit. So I think that's our opportunity, Adam, to talk a little bit in more detail and open up to council comments and commentary. It is my expectation that I will recommend to the mayor and this council that in September we make, I'll propose some course of action and some path for them to kind of move forward, because we do have urgency to move forward with some ideas for our downtown. We need someone to drive the process. And I think that's kind of the key thing that I'm thinking about as the manager, and I think I'm getting from a standpoint of the mayor and council direction for us. And we see a lot of potential in Scotch Plains, and we just need somebody to help us execute the mayor and the council's vision, along with somebody that can help us do it. And I think we'll be on our way to some improvements here. So maybe rather lengthy opening
overview.
Sorry,
without
Mayor.
further ado, Adam,
can't help it.
you've been here and done that.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if it's we move that mic if it's
Yeah,
necessary
it's
for the
important.
recording process. Get that out of the way so it doesn't pick it up. First, thank you very much, especially in August late, for time again. Adam Zellner and Gail Lalla from Greener by Design. We're an environmental asset management firm. I'll describe what that means in a minute. But we work with a lot of downtowns, we work with a lot of cities, we work on a lot of interesting redevelopment projects throughout the state, and actually throughout the East Coast now. We're headquartered in New Brunswick, New Jersey. I teach, as do some of the other folks at our office at Rutgers University in a variety of disciplines, including land use and energy and planning and others. So, the last time we were here, I'll describe again sort of the philosophy of our company in terms of how we go out downtowns. And I always use an analogy of an hourglass, basically. And if you could picture the top of this hourglass where sand falls, there are a variety of streams of funds and resources. They are foundation monies, they're redevelopment monies, their Department of Transportation streetscape monies. We can talk, but I'd rather just give you the list of successful grants that we've already applied for, and certainly some in Union County and here and around your neighbors that you'll know. But they break out into a variety of categories, and again, within the categories, even subcategories on the top, what grants are designed for the small business that might want to come here? What grants are designed for the municipality? Are there particular things like Main Streets associations? DCA has a particular program. There are other not-for-profit programs, foundation programs, arts programs. They all come with different funding streams, different expertise that they lend into towns, and frankly, different networks of people that they look to help. Because this is about attracting a vision, whatever that vision is, right? And so the first part of it is a tight, very close look at what drives development and what drives redevelopment and what drives arts and what drives downtown from a financial perspective for both you and them. And we can't express enough that whatever the decision is, good that there's a lot of firms, because I agree, this is it's a great area, and you guys know that. And whatever firm it is, there has to be a division of how you go after funds, because if it's purely from the city, it is hard to compete for limited funds in a world where only the state gives it out. You must divide, shoot like a shotgun, not like a 44. Go for all sorts, and that requires stakeholders, and we work very closely with those types of stakeholders, not-for-profits, associations, different members of the public, people who are going to have ideas to input to your vision, which I'm sure you have a lot of. But for us, just to be direct, the funding streams. If I can marry a 501c3 with a public-private partnership, with a city fund, with a DOT fund, with a United Way fund, to get the vision together, then this creates a catalyst to go from idea to implementation. And although I love planning, and I used to run the state's planning office for many years, I feel it's very important that you must calibrate the plan to how you're going to implement, and that begins with financing. And so our philosophy is first begin with the buckets of what's out there, how is it out there, and then take the other side of that hourglass, the bottom of it, which is the vision. What is the town looking for? What is the different organizations, the business owners? There are a series, and I'm going to guess there's lots of them over the years, ideas, concepts. People have said, move this, do this, sell that, go here, add this, don't add that. I'll be honest, there's going to be conversations about density and what density you like and don't like. That is a natural conversation about any redevelopment, because that's the first thing that people hear underneath there is the word density. And so you have to deal with that in a way that meets your vision. And in that bottom of the hourglass is also the technical, it's the DOT rules, the county road rules, the setbacks, your parking rules. They're the rubric of the governance of this body and the vision of what people want is so critical, because if the vision is one thing but the parking ratio is not sufficient, then you must get in, you can't wait, you can't walk up and find the problem. You got to see it coming forward, because once you begin the road, if you strangle the process, if you stop halfway through, if you do, my apologies back to you, but if you stop halfway through, it creates much more problems than you had in the beginning when you were looking to do the right thing, which is redevelop or rehabilitate or infill, or simply look to take higher and better advantage of space. So all of these things on the bottom are going to have to be a dialogue that gets broken down into a vision. The two pieces of this hourglass often go like this. You have to flip the thing a lot. And I say that because sometimes there's going to be vision for certain things, but lack of funding. And maybe it's a timing issue. This allows you to put together what I look at as a three-dimensional plan that says, okay, here's the vision. It goes from a floor and ceiling, much like you guys get ideas that go from floors and ceilings, it's broad. It takes a little bit of a shrink once you get towards a place where now here's funding, here's what's out there to actually do it in steps, and then from there becomes the third piece, the schedule. You must engage the stakeholders once the vision is there. And by the way, the stakeholders have been engaged to get to the vision, but everyone must agree on a schedule of how to implement. In going through this with Linden right now, who is dealing with a lot of density that they're adding in their downtown, the scheduling of what comes first between the county road and the coordination of paving and the just simple pushing back of a couple properties and the sidewalks that they're widening and putting in all have to be done right, or we're gonna have the classic, right? The gas company's gonna come over the new road and cut the path, and because we're adding this. So the pieces, in my opinion, need to be put together in a way that says, here's the clear objectives from a timing perspective of where we want to be. That matches the available funding and resources. That allows you then to begin the input to the vision, stakeholder meetings to get you to a place where you complete. For us, you know, we like to incorporate broad ideas. The arts are a big concept, and Gail works very closely with a lot of divisions of the arts and foundation centers and others to bring mixes of use to a downtown, not mixed use sometimes, but mixes of uses. And so, so we like that concept. And so that's us. That's the introduction of the firm. We can talk about lots of places we work with. We just came out of Hoboken and received a very nice national award for some of the plans we're doing on energy and redevelopment of their downtown. Working in a lot of different places around here. And we'd be happy to answer any questions. Gail, let me
Sure, I guess I'll
like
just
that.
add two major points in terms of the way we differentiate as a firm. As Adam mentioned, my background is I'm senior project manager for Greener by Design. I have close to 5 years of experience in managing various municipality work. I work closely with the city of Hoboken. I work closely with the city of Woodbridge. Actually, right now, I'm an advisory member to Sustainable Jersey. They have a task force, which is new, called the Creative Assets Arts and Culture Task Force. So we're actually assessing where the new downtowns can basically incorporate creative placemaking, which is a way to incorporate the arts into real estate, economic development, and bring all sorts of stakeholders to the table. Besides that, a major scope of service that we have in working with downtowns, such as Linden and Woodbridge, is working with their multitude of 501c3s, 501c6, for instance, your Business District Management Corporation. We review what are the best practices that your organizations within the city would need. So we look at best practices of your ordinances, OPA records, what's the best budget basically to have, as we mentioned, financing. Where do you look at your assessments? Bylaws, annual reports. We help with looking at a comparative approach of what are best practices and seeing if there are lessons learned that you can adopt into your organizations within the municipality.
So I'll just add the sort of one overlay is our team is, and you can read, we have some pretty deep experience both on the state, federal side, some pretty deep experience on the grant making side, and a lot of economic development experience. What it does is it marries up a lot of disciplines that allow us to do a bunch of things from the simple, you know, infrastructure all the way up to when you actually develop it, oversighting what has to be done, some of the internal related water, energy, you know, systems that are going to be required to work with all this. So, and with that, we'd be happy to take any questions because I know that's what we fell short on last time. So.
Mr. Corsotti, do you have any questions, or anyone go if they have something queued up in their head?
How do you marry the 501c3 players into it? Can you elaborate on that?
Sure.
Sure. So typically, a business downtown improvement organization, it could be a SID or a BID. There's typically 4 different organizational structures that they might have. Some are 501c3 in New Jersey, some are 501c6. Cranford and Brunswick were actually the first SIDs, BIDs set up in New Jersey. So it's a personal preference depending on what your consultant suggests. So basically, depending on the structure, it allows you to have different mechanisms for raising funds. So for 501c3, as being an organization that has a public purpose, a charitable mission, you have more access to various funds. So for instance, if you're looking at a project that incorporates stakeholders or public arts projects, you'll be able to approach the Geraldine R. Dog Foundation and say, we're an eligible entity, we can marry up funds that we have in our budget with what you're able to give us in some grants. Linden SID, they're 501c6, so they do not have as much access to those sorts of funds, because they're not set up as a charitable organization. So it varies between how your board of directors is set up, how much capacity your chairman might have versus your board of directors. But it's very important to make sure that the organization is really fitting in with its overall mission, and that yearly you review what are your goals for each year in terms of your assessments. Is it an appropriate amount? Are you engaging your stakeholders, your businesses in terms of what's to come? So that reporting is definitely very important.
And I could, let me just add one more example, which is in Hudson County. We do a lot of partnerships, Jersey City, Hoboken, Guttenberg, with 501c3s that exist today. And so think about fairs, downtown fairs, the Mystic Vision players. There's a variety of arts groups that don't have the capacity to write the grant, but they have the mission and all the right stuff. They just need a little bit of help. And in a public-private partnership, we're engaged by the municipality in one case, county by another case. We're assisting them to write a grant that will provide entertainment at the county's fair, where they will then be sponsored. A 501c3 will help pay for it. The grant will pay about $50,000 to bring them in, bring local kids in. There's an education course for classes for kids who want to take the class on how to be an actor. And so it's a very interesting partnership, but underneath it, it helps expand the mission of the downtown and the fair that's drawing people in and doing all the stuff. And so, and it also brings in stakeholders. You'll find, as you probably know, there are an inordinate amount of 501c3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s if you look. I mean, everywhere. And so it's just a matter of bringing them in, because they are like a pyramid. They represent so many other people underneath them. It's easy to communicate with them, and then we can spread those dollars out based on the vision coming back that you're looking to implement, because that's the part that they're missing. They don't have the resources. So.
And one integral program, just to add to that, is the Department of Community Affairs Main Street program. They select key municipalities that are on the forefront of looking at downtown management issues, and they typically prefer 501c3s in terms of being eligible for additional funds, just because of the eligibility requirements. So it's a tax write-off for folks that if you're looking at sponsorships from your major surrounding businesses in New Jersey. It's a great way of saying, come and sponsor us, and you'll get something in return.
You can write it down.
Can I ask what you mean by that when you talk about sponsorships? Can you elaborate a little bit?
So we have a not-for-profit partnership in Linden that sponsors the Hawk Rise, and is with the New Jersey Autobahn Society. Thank you. And Autobahn, where Linden Autobahn can accept a donation from Merck. Merck can give that donation to help the park. The donation then is to Autobahn. It's a 501, so it is a writable, and it is different than the pot of money that Merck has set aside for government entities, because as you know, there are host community benefits that happen if you have businesses inside. Sometimes they sponsor a bench or sponsor a park. That's one set of local money for a corporation. There's a for-profit end of that corporation that is looking for charitable donations right about now, by the way, up until November, December, because then they can write those charitable donations down. And so when we combine some of the companies that could give to the Autobahn, because they saw that as a mission that they could give to, Autobahn was able to do the one-year management of the whole park, invasive species, all the stuff for them. And so it was a way of raising additional money, because some corporations can only give to 501c3s or C6s. That's the only mission they have. Plus foundations, the Gates Foundation, the Apple. There's all these foundations that exist today that sometimes have more money than even the governments have these days. So they're very wealthy, and they look to other 501c3s, C6s to that have similar missions, and that's why we partner with them. We'll literally, if the money's there, if we have an inventory of everybody you got, somebody meets the mission, and provided they're willing to partner, we're willing to help if you're willing to lend their help.
So I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about the arts. Under under this mayor's leadership, the cultural arts program has really grown in our community. I'm interested to hear more about how you help that, how you connect that, because that was an area of expertise for yours, right? So if we're looking to grow the downtown, and that's obviously a system that's already in place, how do you help?
Absolutely. I think step one would be getting an inventory of your arts and creative culture of Scotch Plains, and that could be connecting with local artists, performance arts, your movie theater, if you have traditional performance art spaces, or anything that really falls within that category, and get an inventory of. So for instance, if I can use an example, the Township of Woodbridge just completed a plan with Together North Jersey, which was a grant that basically gave them technical assistance to create a master plan. So what they're going to do is have basically a northeast corridor line of an arts corridor, which would connect from Rahway, Avenel, and Woodbridge proper. So the first step for them has been to have an inventory. They have a Woodbridge Arts Alliance, which is their 501c3, in which I'll be sitting as a board member to give feedback in terms of what's the next step of implementation. It also includes an urban planning exercise to see what are the strategic locations that you could have maybe public art space, raise monies for that. If you're looking at enhancement of your library programs, museums, it's engagement of real estate as well. So it's also taking an inventory of that. And also, I guess lastly, developing to see what organization can maybe really take the lead in that. And if you mentioned that you already have an organization that's your cultural point of contact, then you're already ahead of several municipalities.
We don't, as you know, we don't house our own theater in town, but as I said, there's a cultural arts committee that has really spearheaded a number of efforts, and those have grown, especially this year. We've seen different programs happening. So what I hear you saying is that, you know, when you, an arts corridor, if we don't have our own theater, it's not necessarily detrimental to the community.
Correct. I actually went on a website last week, which I encourage, is a walkability performance test actually of every municipality in the country. And in terms of having a corridor, if you have access to a neighboring center of arts, that's also another strategy. It becomes a lot about partnerships and the engagement of how you get feet on the street to connect public art, performance art, street art. Actually, for example, he's actually creating an ordinance that allows for local artists to become muralists for key points. And so it's a very interesting conversation to have and incorporate possibly into your master plan. So Woodbridge is actually, they retain Rutgers University to incorporate an arts master plan into their overall planning exercise.
Yeah, and I'll add that's, I mean, the key is incorporating it into that master plan so it blends, because what you're effectively doing is adding value by inserting certain public amenities and art amenities that feed both traffic, outside visibility, but also add value. They, as we've done this in a number of places, you can see, as long as you have an inventory of the community you have, and then you look to sort of an overarching, you need a point person to organize it all, which is why it's got to go into the master plan. Each consideration has to have an artistic, not an overlay, but at least a thought to how it incorporates land use. Because what changes is if you price out everybody. If you quickly redevelop and you don't put those parcels aside and there's not open spaces or public spaces for people to do things or even eat outside and things like that, once that is not programmed, it becomes difficult to react because you're going to evaluate land and it gets very hard to react from it. So it's got to be done up front.
And it's an initial assessment of a market evaluation. So if you're going to do a market study of your area, it would be centered towards having an arts-driven economic development. So assessing what are your potential tenants that might be an instrument manufacturer of pianos. Do they have an interest in being an anchor tenant on your street? And that could actually, as that potential tenant as an anchor, it can start a wave of future potential artist workspace. In Woodbridge, actually, the concept is helper development. It's creating a live, work, learn space where they'll have subsidized housing and they've assessed what market rate works best for potential artists to live there. And we're actually outfitting studio space to see what would be the ideal technology art centered workspace for movies, music production, and dance are some examples.
Well,
You mentioned when looking for outside funding from foundations and trusts and the like, that arts is one of the areas you can center on. Maybe you could list if there are other similar ones, and I would ask is history one of those areas too, where there are foundations that are interested in history, because I think we have a unique and interesting history in Scotch plains that goes back a ways, though I'm not sure how that, as well as the arts, might tie into current businesses.
Yeah, the answer is yeah, there's probably 5 or 6 others that are out there. Technology, education in general, and it's STEM heavy, but education today. History, it is art, but it comes out separately, especially here because it's going to come into the historic place. The trail system, the green belt system that exists in Union County today, you know, and the what effectively are the historic house tours that exist, which drive a lot of Roselle. Always amazed at the Abraham Clark house sitting right there on the corner across from the school, which, you know, you look at it and like, wow, there it is. That guy signed the Declaration right there. And so yeah, that is, to Gail's comment about inventorying the different groups that we can work with, a lot of that will become how we can attract money to go after, you know, creating programs, incorporating those programs into activities, and then those activities literally become scheduled. So it becomes the yearly historic house tour, or the night, they have a lot of night hikes, which they do, and which are a lot of fun with the flashlights, and they go around and check out different old houses because they're apparently more fun at night. And so yeah, it would be incorporated. We would also, and I know as I get close to the third rail, but you have to get close to it because I never know in towns that I step in, but also if there are opportunities to partner in any way with the schools, they do get grants, and they have programmatic stuff that is very interesting, and we always look to, where appropriate, partner with them. So recognizing we work for the municipalities. So.
We worked closely on a historic preservation project in Homedale, New Jersey, which was a private development but mixed use, the former Bell Lab site, which has close to 12 patents internationally, and their appetite was for tax credits. So that's an incentive that we work with the Office of SHPO in New Jersey, and also federally. So there's a ton of grants that are out there on the state and federal side for historic preservation specifically.
Okay, that's great to know. If you shift gears a little bit, when you go back to the other end, away from the specific money raising for individual things and over to the kind of ground zero vision side of things, is it an issue or concern, or how do you assess Scotch Plains uniquely? As I see it, we don't have big undeveloped areas in the downtown municipal or in the downtown business district, unlike, say, neighboring Clark, for example, which just had a big factory where they did a big development. So we don't have that. We have a lot of small, physically small properties, and while we have some municipally owned land, an awful lot of it is private ownership. So ultimately, a lot of it has to be selling a vision to the public. So 2 parts of the question. One, if you can just talk about how you sell a vision to the public. And additionally, because we don't have big plots of land, is that a challenge for finding good anchor tenant? And I know you just mentioned anchor tenants previously with regards to history, but how important are anchor tenants in launching and catapulting downtown redevelopments?
I'll take the public part first, and then anchor tenants, which is it's an interesting question because it depends a little bit on the first part of the vision. So in terms of the engagement, stakeholder engagement is key, we believe, for a number of different reasons, and I can go through all those, but I'm going to guess you guys believe those are the same reasons. For us, it's threefold. First, it becomes an inventory of what the assets are. So you can create a realistic floor and ceiling. What is it? What can it be as the best it can be, and what can it be the least impactful and the most impactful it can be? It takes an understanding from you, the council folks, as to what are the limits. Because once you set a floor and ceiling, is mid-rise, two floor above apartments over retail, the vision? Or is less impact the vision? Is it a re-alteration of the space so that your setbacks, which are, as you set back here and you have your green space in front of the town, are you trying to reset the space to give it more visibility so that you can create in your small infill, and I'll answer that question now, a variety of niche places so that the circulation revolves around a couple of niche uses and the hours of those uses match the drive so that you have 18-hour drive or 14-hour drive so that these places complement each other. 9 to 5 next to the rest. After 5, they're not playing off one another. One's closed while the other's open. The only benefit you get is shared parking, and that can be dealt with in a whole different way. And so you do not need a major anchor tenant to redevelop a downtown of this caliber. Your per capita income is very high relative to the rest of the country, very, very high. It is a space that already has lots of density. You already have, from a circulation, we looked at the DOT numbers, we've looked at, you got some busy roads, you're pass-throughing tons of traffic here. All the elements are already here. It's how it's captured, and then frankly, it's how it's turned into something that is much more specific to you. The character, you need to kind of give me what is that? And usually that means small infill, a series of, they're micro hubs, right? One draws a restaurant with a series of restaurants, that's a micro hub. One draws a series of artistic uses because they like to locate, which happens to have also the restaurant in between it because it wants to take advantage. And then one has a series of mixes of uses that can be a whole bunch of different things. And they draw off each other to create circulation. Parking is then mapped out and located, and the hours of operation then mapped out and located so that the density you have simply is taken advantage of more. In my opinion, it's not like you need to draw it. 100,000 more people here. I mean, you got lots of people, and you know this, and it's the same as many of the other Garwood, I'm thinking some of the towns going through redevelopment. It's the pass-through traffic that happens so much. So it's a long-winded way of saying, yes, you can happen with the limited number of parcels you have in an infill. It's about shape, opening, lighting, direction, and use. No, you do not need a major tenant, anchor tenant as in like the 20-figure anchor tenant to do that, and specifically you don't need a box. Because the box is the question everybody's asking. Plus the box stores, to be honest, they're hiding in little stores now. Everybody thinks they're in a little store. You're just in the same box store. They just built it with a cute name, and they made it smaller. And so they figured out how to make that market work in a less, what I'll call Westfield-like way, less mall-like outdoor way. But I'll close. I think there are two critical elements to that. One, you have to have the balance of the parking and locations. It's all about 800 feet. People will go, quarter mile is a real far. So you got to know how you're going to locate the uses and their impactfulness. And second, you must make sure that as part of the engagement with the business community and the stakeholders, the public, that you attract the uses that complement one another. Because I can't tell you how many get the dry cleaner next to the restaurant that then one's closed, one's open, one's closed. Very hard to make the engine go if only one cylinder fires every couple hours. So I hope that answers.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions? You walk, anyone else have a question? We're all good. Yeah, I mean, you've walked our downtown, presumably, okay?
Several times.
And so have I. And, we're excited that we have a new yogurt place coming into town. And I suspect that some of the activities that we've been driving, which is trying to drive foot traffic here, influences people to come. But looking at our downtown, I mean, can you share with us, before you part, any obvious observations other than the fact that we know we need to drive some more foot traffic, because I'm a firm believer, having owned retail stores in all those towns, some of all those towns you mentioned, that's the metamorphosis. You get people to come, people will invest. But absent that, it's tough. I mean, we've got, I don't want to take a guess, but maybe 20,000 vehicles go up and down Park Avenue. We need to slow them down, okay? And I was just curious your thoughts on how do we slow it down, other than to put detours up, which we got in trouble for once, for a whole different reason.
I couldn't agree more, and it's the exact conversation we're having on Wood Avenue in Linden, because they are suffering the Route 1 connectivity issue where people are passing through from 1 moving west because they want to avoid stiles where the trucks are. And so just a couple things. For me, what I see is first, streetscape. You can do some traffic calming and streetscape things that are not permanent, and I give you the Hoboken example of what we've done and what now in Linden, simple a yellow striping, where you're taking 2 poles and you're yellow striping. The road's right there for all those behind me that do snow plowing. It is not elevated. You can snow plow away. You're not going to hit your snow plow on a bump, but it allows you to extend, thus shrinking from 18 to 14 your traffic widths, which will allow for people to still park and pass, but not, it will calm the traffic a lot. You've got to coordinate that. And also I think you need streetscape. Some bump outs would allow you to create some streetscape allowed here. Open up. It is hard to see if I'm standing at the bar and I look out and I want to see which retail is here. I have to then come out, forgive me, I have to come out to kind of here, and I can kind of see the retail, and then I have to go to see if it's open and walk down to, it needs drawn out visibility. In some places it's a marquee that comes out sideways so you visibly can see all the stores, and they're actually cut with a flare, and so you can, the sight line becomes much different, and the flare is only a 1-degree flare, but it changes the whole sight line of the downtown. And so to me, and without going, going into the bigger dollars that you need to do some of the bigger things, but to me, just the traffic calming streetscape, and then maybe some coordination of the parking and the timing of the stores, because I see that as well when I'm here, because I always stop at the restaurant after. It's, our place we're just opened, there's 100 people in there tonight. I mean, anyway, sorry.
Go out there and tell some of them.
Yeah.
But that was a very good overview. I know we've allocated 45 minutes, so any closing comments that you may want to leave with us? I mean, I hope this was valuable for everybody, your presence. I've heard you before, so I won't belabor a lot of my comments. I think you're spot on that observation, by the way. We clearly need to do something. With that, I know we have somebody else looking forward to sit and chat with us as well. To both of you, thank you.
Thank you.
I think this was very informative, and hopefully we'll get to catch up Adam, Gail again.
Great. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you so much.
Happy end of summer.
Yeah, stay cool, huh? So let's get a thunder shout. Gail, thank you so much. Forgive me for not jumping over. I'm an old man now. Thank you so much. They say we could get some rain, so get to head to the cars,
Let's get to right.
No, it won't. Never rains in Scotch Plains. Real thing. Adam, Gail, thanks again. Nicely done. Gail, very nicely done.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, Thursday's the only day, and Friday. Okay, does anybody want to take we're 5 minutes ahead of schedule. Would someone want a break, or is everybody good? I just put it out there. In which case, Mr. Mirabella, why don't we invite our gentleman sitting in the rear of the, our gallery today?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Come forward.
Looney, Ricks, and Kiss. Come forward and make your presentation. I mentioned a little bit before you got here that we went out for proposal. We had 4 respondents. We have now brought it down to 2 for a little bit more information. And part of the reason why we thought this expanded session was important was to allow sufficient time for questions and answers. And I know with limited time, the last time you were here, we kind of were rushing. And I think this will give us a little bit more opportunity to dig a little deeper, understand a little bit more, and have a good conversation about what your vision is and how to execute the vision of this council in Scotch Plains.
Thank you.
Let you set up for a minute.
like two audiences.
Jim Constantine, thank you. Welcome back, Jim.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're happy
You
to-
rushed last time. I think I had less than 10 minutes. So
We've got 15 queued up.
15 queued up.
And you've already wasted 4 setting up that present.
They helped last time. I guess the easiest,
But you caught our attention. So brevity is the essence of success, Jim.
right. I think this one caught attention last
Well,
time. So.
is that Paris? I don't know. Just kidding.
No, it's not. It's not. I guess one question I do have to just begin is trying to get a real clear sense. You asked in the RFP initially this wide range of things that you might be looking for, and I guess what I'm still searching for is trying to understand what your strategic goals are. Not comprehensive. You can cover from here to here, and planners often get lost in comprehensiveness. I think in part because we do a lot of work with developers and with communities that are much more focused in implementation, strategic investment, that we tend to think about, what are the key things? If 3 years from now you could change 3 things, what would they be? And that's the sort of process we like to walk through to really try to understand, because I'm a big believer that, we can look at a great site here, an opportunity there, but things have to be lined up properly, and that really starts with you and what your goals are, and what it is you want to have different here, and improved and enhanced in 3 years.
So,
Well, it was with that thought, okay, I suspect it's why this council governing body, the manager, asked to see you again, because I think you are focused on what is the issue. I mean, we can talk from A to Z, but we have something that sits right outside our building, okay, that runs a couple of blocks. Somebody may argue maybe it's a block and a half. That's there. There's not tremendous infill. That's opportunities there. We're not Clark, where we have buildings that have sat vacant for 2 decades that are being torn down, and they're putting up these wonderful new food stores. We are Scotch Plains. We have something unique, we think, out there. We certainly have a great deal of traffic, but we need, and you may have heard this earlier from Mr. MIRABELLA, we need a driver for a vision, okay, so that we could see some visible, tangible improvements to our downtown, which will create foot traffic, which will, I'm speaking for myself, maybe it's the sentiment, I suspect it is of many of my colleagues, that will bring new folks to town, all right? I think we've seen some great change, or what, I won't say great, but some significant improvement of late. We have a business that has celebrated its first anniversary, which we're very happy for outside. We have brought another merchant right to Westfield and Park Avenue within the last couple of months, a carpet place service business, which seems to be doing well, a very new hair salon. And notwithstanding, there's a yogurt place looking to come by October, I hear, if everything goes to plan. So I think some of that drives that is that we're having more activities in town. If I'm going to invest in a town, I want to see what's going on. So there are standards that we'd like to see maybe change, standards we, should I say change, to put in place, and then to drive the maintenance in that direction. We see a future, but as you said, what is that future? 3, 5, 15 years? We'd like to see something in our lifetime, and something that can be reset without, making huge investments as necessary.
So, I think what we hear consistently from the constituents, from the residents, is that the downtown is not a downtown that is reflective of the demographics or the needs of the demographics of the community. if you look at the average household income or even the average home value of the community, you would expect a downtown similar to some of the more well-known shopping areas. There's been speculation out there, I think a lot of conversation about, Scotch Plains doesn't allow chain stores, and some of that actually is just really misinformation. I don't know that we're specifically looking to recruit anchor stores or chain stores, but we've never been in a situation where we've excluded anyone or intentionally made it difficult for a business to come to the community. If I have two young children, they're in the school system. What I hear consistently is that people are busy and they want things that are convenient and that meet their needs. I think we also struggle a little bit with even the operating hours of our downtown. And for me, I'm not home from work before 6 o'clock. Most of our businesses are closed by then. And I know that I'm not unique in that situation. On Sunday afternoon, we have some really amazing businesses that aren't open. So I think some of the pieces are in education and providing opportunities, and some of the pieces are also in bringing things into the downtown so that you take people with the average household income that is as high as it is in Scotch Plains, and you get them to spend their money and their time in Scotch Plains downtown rather than constantly leaving. I look at opportunities that are missed. For example, we don't have a lot of part-time employment opportunities for our high school students. That's disappointing. We don't have a lot of part-time employment opportunities for some parents who have really left industry, to raise their family, and they're looking for more limited work hours. Just because we don't have the thriving downtown that you would anticipate that we would. We have award-winning businesses in our downtown. We have nationally and certainly statewide recognized businesses. It's just a matter of kind of getting people who come to those stores to spend a little bit more time here as well. I also think there's a good deal of sensitivity. People expect things to look a certain way, and that's tough, because how do you say to people, we need you to fix the front of your building because somebody else wants you to, that's a tall order. So part of what I think that we need is some ways to help kind of facilitate that process for some of the building owners. What funding is out there for them that adds value to their investment, but also, adds value to the entire township as well. Is that it's a very long answer, but did that answer your question?
It helps, certainly.
Okay.
I'll add to that as well, if I could. I would echo the councilwoman's comment that for at least the friends whom I have, close friends, personal friends in town, they probably very infrequently go to downtown Scotch Plains and more often go to other municipalities' downtowns. And part of the reason for that is, again, it's just a matter of what draws you there, what kind of destinations people seek out. So, while we have a number of very nice restaurants, and I've been to all of them, there's a small number of restaurants in town. So that would be one thing to point to. When I think of downtown redevelopment, one other thing in particular I think about is density. And I think we have an opportunity, so long as it's well planned and smartly planned, and that's where I don't trust myself to come up with that plan. I need the expertise, but I think we certainly have an opportunity to increase density. Even on a street like Park Avenue out here, where the buildings physically are next to each other, I would think you have possibilities of increasing density by going upward. And then you look at another area in our business district, which is East 2nd Street, and there you have opportunity to go upward and infill. So those are the things that jump out to me when I see redevelopment in adjoining communities. It does feel like more places are going upward, and I think that's something we have to consider. But I don't know you have to really carefully think through the implications of increased density when it comes to parking and all those sorts of issues.
I'm gonna do 2 minutes, quick. We need to spruce it up, make it attractive. Echo in the words. People are leaving the community. We want them to stay. More restaurants, more fun, more entertainment. We talked about arts and bringing. I mean, I think you get a consensus of where we all want to go. And I know you keep looking at the clock, but we don't want you to run out of time. So please tell us what you say. Okay.
You still got 40 minutes, right? Plenty of time. Plenty of time.
Unless you have anything to add,
Well, I think that we have, you know, some issues. I think we have some signage issues throughout the town. You know, I always say, you know, eye appeal is by appeal. So, and we just need to definitely increase traffic. And everybody always says we need a coffee shop.
so you need
We need a coffee shop.
Howard Schultz is waiting for a phone call. He's standing by his phone.
Well, great. I appreciate that because I'm still trying to get a handle on it. So, flip for a second. I'm Jim Constantine, principal with Rooney Ricks Kiss. We're an architecture and planning firm. We're actually based in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm the principal in charge of our Princeton office. We're also in Dallas and Orlando, Baton Rouge, and a couple of smaller outposts elsewhere. And I've had the opportunity, I'm a planner licensed in New Jersey, but I've had the opportunity of working now in 30 states. So I don't bring a complete New Jersey focus because I've seen things done differently elsewhere, and I think that broadens perspective. I actually have a chance to work outside of, I would say technically North America. This is a new town center that we're developing in Panama that's actually under construction now. That really is creating something on a former military base that didn't exist before, but it will be a new city for 60 to 80,000 residents and employees. They actually already have 8,000 employees.
We'll take that.
A lot happens.
Just do that.
No,
I said Paris. So it was Panama. They were
one
both
of the,
paid.
but one of the challenges we had was trying to create an image of a place because we are not, the location is not one that is a natural destination at the moment. And then just back in terms of our the work that we do, apologize if I'm walking in here, I'll try to step back. We've worked in a lot of different scale communities here in New Jersey. I know Mr. Renaud knows me from work in Metuchen, and this is their main street. And the reason I'm also pointing this out is that you have an infill building and a renovation here. It was just 2 decades ago where all your upper floors were basically storage. I know that because I used to live on the main street.
One second.
Sure.
They need you near a microphone. They're asking that you
The
get a
mic
microphone.
is right behind you, sir.
This mic works. Okay, sorry. I pushed it back. I'll push it forward. There we go. New infill construction here. We've also worked in the Plainsboro Village Center in southern Middlesex County, and these are some of the buildings that we designed there. Again, the mayor of Plainsboro had long heard, we're tired of crossing Route 1 and going over to downtown Princeton. We want a center of town, and actually they built their library on the village square. And we just recently renovated a shopping center across the street. Other examples of places that we've been involved with downtown or infill placemaking. And every place is different and the scale is different. So I'm not going to compare you to South Bend, Indiana, on the edge of the Notre Dame campus, where we created an edge of campus place where one didn't exist before. The students had nowhere to go, and this has become the party zone on football Saturdays within walking distance of the stadium. Here's another example from a redevelopment project where we designed the entire town center in Baldwin Park in Orlando. This is another shot of one of the streets we designed the buildings on, both sides in Plainsboro. So the reason I'm showing this is that there's a diverse range of character here. You have to find the right solutions, and a lot of what we do early on in a community like this is we'll offer to do a community vision survey where it's a chance to do some public outreach, get the community involved. We think it's very important to get stakeholders, the business, property owners, and businesses. That's absolutely key. And to do some visioning, and we have a technique that we've used that's won some awards where we give people interactive clickers. We usually do this in open house formats. I think I mentioned previously that we had done this in Garwood in a process that we did there. We're about to go do it in another community in Fairlawn in Bergen County in September. We just did it recently in Hightstown. It's a great tool because I'm going to tell you right now, I can't come in and guess and hit accurately what's probably in the minds of people when you talk about some of these aspirations. And that's really what I heard a strain of getting to. Is it more of this? Is it something like this? Is it a wow factor that maybe nobody's seen yet? It's talking about where people do go and spend their time from a leisure standpoint. Not that you're necessarily trying to replicate or copy another community, but it starts to give you perhaps some cues. So I can show you using this sort of process recently in Hightstown, which is a small borough surrounded by East Windsor in Mercer County, right near Exit 8, vastly improved. And they had an underutilized piece of the waterfront that we looked at the downtown more broadly, but our real focus was on 3 properties that could be assembled. And we're going to be presenting this to the council and the planning board in a joint meeting later in September. We did an entire process there. It was very focused and strategic, and we did it in 5 weeks. And part of that is because there was a lot of outreach with the stakeholders, particularly members of the business community. We did this, by the way, for a nonprofit downtown organization called Downtown Hightstown. We then, in the church on the site, did a public open house where we had about 150 people come in, and literally 3 days later presented a concept plan that was a start. It's a vision. It's not a detailed plan, and it's also represented by and there's a lot more to it, kind of a rendering of how the community could take a waterfront that basically now is a parking lot and capture something that came out of the community taking these vision surveys and us being able to interact. And people were, I think, in a community that sees itself as very historic, actually voting for change, not because we suggested it. We actually did that by way of using images, because one picture is worth 1,000 words. And by the end, I think as a community, we have tremendous input from them, basically saying, yes, we'd like to take a shot at trying to transform our lakefront to be something different, more vibrant. The central park of our community, as one citizen put it. Your community here, we're right, that's right, Town Hall, parking lot on one side, a beautiful little park on the other. I didn't see anybody in it tonight. I'm sure there's times when it's more activated. Sidewalks directly across on Park Avenue, I paced them off just before, 25 feet wide. It's the same width of sidewalks on Nassau Street in Princeton that you know, for different reasons and different drivers, even during the off summer, are quite loaded with people. Or the width of the sidewalks in downtown Freehold, where there has been a concerted effort for decades to basically really pump the right kind of restaurants in and enliven the streetscape, gazebos and seating. If you went there this evening, it would just be loaded with people. And they don't have the demographics you have. They are a county seat, but they have nowhere near the demographics that you have. Parking lots where they have extensive frontage on streets and basically create these missing teeth or gaps in the streetscape, like between the municipal building and what I did see is it seemed to be a pretty active pub at the next building over, do create opportunities. And I think there's probably other opportunities in looking strategically, and this is where you go to the to the process and engaging stakeholders, engaging property owners. I know we're involved in something in Bergen County where we know all the properties won't be at play, and so sometimes you're strategically creating a process to find out if folks might be willing to explore things, and that's the way I always like to put it. You're not going to come in and tell them what to do, but oftentimes I do notice there's interesting things and idiosyncrasies to local downtown property ownership, and you've got to start the dialogue, and you may know properties that perhaps might be, owners might be willing to consider some investment or change, or perhaps want to sell. So you're looking for these strategic investment opportunities. And I'm also showing this in your downtown because I can show you at the same exact scale a place that we have been involved with a lot of investment, and this is Metuchen. Actually, Bonnie knows Metuchen as well. And you can see how much is happening from, and a lot of the same issues are actually at play there today, but there is a new town square coming because they didn't have a downtown public space. A very nice main street, walkable probably, you know, fairly good character in places. Part of that was clearing off parking into a garage. Now they have a train station and commuters, so it's different. New downtown apartments, a new Whole Foods, other retail and ancillary development. There's been a lot of infill. Some of it has been transitional infill on old school sites into neighborhoods with additional downtown housing. There's no doubt that although they've added lots of folks that are called the new downtown stakeholders who are believing in the vision of where this place was going to jump, they have a huge number of apartments coming, all of them with things like covered bicycle parking, either in rooms, in you know, high facilitation. We're right on the edge of the Middlesex Greenway, which absolutely appeals to the millennial demographic that is probably not staying in town and choosing elsewhere. And there's no doubt that you can capture them. That demographic will grow. It's also empty nesters who are looking to retire somewhere different, trade in the deck in the backyard for the sidewalk cafe and want to be part of a vibrant downtown. I don't know where the opportunities are. I think you may have ownership of some properties that perhaps could be similar to in Heightstown, perhaps considered to be catalytic investments that might spur other things. And there's no doubt this is a municipal parking lot that's a huge catalyst that's affecting other things that are happening in Metuchen. I think in terms of just the streetscape, you've made improvements to your streetscape. You have some nice lights and places, some great flower baskets and trash receptacles and things out on the street. Streetscape alone, though, may not do it. If you're really trying to create that wow factor that gets the 20,000 people out of their car, they need to see activity, and that was the one thing that certainly seemed to be lacking on the street tonight. And this is not meant in criticism, just an objective thing. I stood there, I asked a couple of businesses, how's business? Summer, it's slow. The restaurateurs were sitting in chairs behind their buildings out in the parking lot because there was nobody in. So part of that's an intensification, and that involves change, and is the community ready for some of that? If they are really looking for that greater sense of activity, then certainly there are ways to do it, and I think your focus to think about it on your Main Street, on Park Avenue, is the right way, is the right place, and figuring out then what could be a couple of lead moves that might then create investor confidence. And this is the way I think very much in kind of a business plan that might induce others. And a lot of times I will tell you, nothing has happened dramatically for so long that people are kind of content to sit there. But sometimes if you can find one or two catalysts that open people up to say, if that happened, then I might be willing to do this. But they want to see that happen first. And so you got to find where is that low-hanging fruit. And it may be that you also search for alternative sources of funding for some things. I think I mentioned last time we were just finishing a plan in a community in Michigan that is using a lot of investment that's coming out of foundations to actually put in a new riverfront park, put in a new farmer's market and a year-round food hall. There are foundations that are interested in community building. It's been a huge shift. I'm not saying that it's easy to go find that money, but it may be that you can couple together several of those things that may be able to provide money that you won't find in Trenton, because those pots are pretty spare these days, and I think will be for the foreseeable future. There's also, just in terms of trying to match that too, I have examples of some things I can pass around and share with you. We also were involved in a second layer of reinvestment in Plainsboro that's occurring now in a dead shopping center across the street from their village center, and the whole notion of trying to design that shopping center to look more in keeping with the village center is there. And I think somebody had asked me a kind of a pointed question last time, you know, about perhaps what's something that I can't remember exactly how it was put to me, but I do think that there are things you can do from the standpoint of providing some design guidance and assistance to businesses on signage. I would absolutely agree. I think you have some examples that there are ways that you can provide inducements to try to work with businesses to move that. But it's not enough just to do signs. It's a multi-point approach, and I think at some point you do need something a little bigger to happen. Not everywhere, and I'm not a big believer, you know, it's not a blow-up redevelopment plan that you need. I think you need some strategic investments that send the message, and if the municipality is in a leadership role, it also helps you go to the business community and say, we're doing this, can you partner with us? Can we work together? I have examples of some of the projects that we've worked on I could pass around. One's from Springfield, another from Bradley Beach. I think I shared some of that with you last time. The Bloomfield Avenue corridor in Montclair. These were all things done under the Together North Jersey outlet. I have an example of what we did in Garwood. I know you asked about that last time as well. And these are examples of this is the booklet of basically what's happening in Metuchen with their new town square. And the rendering is sort of a year old at this point. It's going to look even better than what I'm sharing there. But
So I have a pretty specific question, and it's something that you touched on in a roundabout way. We don't have a train station, okay? It's obviously not a secret. But what we do have is we do have a lot of bus traffic that leaves Scotch Plains and heads into the city. And actually, I know this is a point that you've raised before, and it's interesting because it's a dialogue that I've had with friends that are commuters. I have a lot of friends who are commuters who don't take the train. They prefer the bus transportation. So, you know, I think while we could spend a lot of time focusing on what we don't have, I wonder if we could also spend some time focusing on maybe there's some missed opportunity there. You know, we do have commuter traffic leaving the downtown. There, in some ways, it needs to be tweaked because we're also using parking spots. But you know, have you been in a situation where you looked at anything other than train stations as far as really capitalizing on that commuter traffic?
Absolutely, and we've been involved with a lot of. First of all, say that one of the hats that we do wear, one of our public sector clients, we are the program manager for New Jersey Transit's community-friendly planning program. And some of those assignments do involve looking at places that are just served by bus. There is more bus service from Garwood than there is rail daily boardings, for sure.
Bus people are good people, yes.
That serve you. We've also been involved with many bus rapid transit projects in both the Toronto and Ottawa areas. We are right now designing a new bus shelters that are enhanced. It's a New Jersey Transit standard with enhancements. I can't say what those are because they're waiting to go to the Traffic and Transportation Committee in Princeton, but Princeton does not have bus shelters out, does not accommodate them. We design custom shelters in Metuchen that they're very proud of. There's 4 of them in the downtown that are a unique symbol. You absolutely can think about the bus riders the same way you would rail riders. There's no difference. They are using transit. Their point of starting and stopping is in town. It also says that you probably can have opportunities where people can live, come downstairs, board a bus to work with a huge convenience factor. They don't have to start their car on an icy, cold morning or deal with it at night when they come home. And those are the same people that will be walking up and down Park Avenue activating restaurants because coming home from a long commute, that's what happens in many rail communities.
So does New Jersey Transit help fund any of those projects?
The program that we're involved with them offers planning assistance to certain communities.
Okay.
So and oftentimes that's done in a partnering effort, Union County and the North Jersey Transport. There was a series of partners, for instance, in Garwood.
Somebody else have a question?
I do. What approach do you take in getting the property owners involved in the process?
We like to start, first of all, asking who we should talk to and start, oftentimes, if there is somebody locally who can sort of be the ambassador that we'll work with. In Fairlawn, we're working with their Economic Development Committee or a representative from that committee. We think it starts with smaller one-on-one conversations, often interviews. And to be honest, we like to create an opportunity to hear things that they might not say in a public forum in front of the governing body. That's important to hear that and understand. Whether perceptions are correct or accurate or not, it's important to understand where they are seeing the world from locally. And then from there, you start to figure out if there's opportunities or not with key ones. We're going to be working in one community where the outreach is going to be a series of meetings with myself and the mayor and some of the key property owners, and a member of one of their committees to bounce ideas around, brainstorm. It's not coming to them saying, here's what we want to do. There's an opportunity. And sometimes people have never been asked, and they think a new opportunity is just that, and they're willing to think a little differently or perhaps explore things that they wouldn't normally, or you might not think they would. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, that property owner will never do anything, and some opportunity occurs that actually allows that property to change.
Anybody else have a follow-up question?
Can you talk a little bit about, you talked about catalysts, right? So here in Scotch Plains, we don't have big pieces of completely undeveloped land, nor do we have big parcels of land. Some modest-sized ones that the town owns, obviously this property, the library property type things, but nothing real big. Can you talk about 2 things? One is maybe just go into more detail in terms of catalysts, and how do those catalysts have to fit in to a more holistic vision plan, right? I mean, you build something that says, well, here's a vision that everybody buys into for 10 years from now, and then how do you find catalysts that help move you in that direction?
Right. Well, I mean, one thing is, I don't know if there have been any market studies done or any information. I know in Springfield there were some good baseline, and we don't do that type of analysis that was provided. A lot of the work that we do when we go into communities from New Jersey Transit, there's an economist that helps to look for some things. Is there an opportunity for a small downtown grocery, or is there a need? You have an anchor pharmacy right here a block away on your main street. But are there gaps in there? Are there gaps in terms of some of the housing offerings in the downtown? I always say this to communities as well. I've lived upstairs downtown in old, funky old buildings and things of that nature. There is often a need, though, for fresh, new, right-sized closets, elevator service, meeting code. There's a market that loves to live in downtown environments. They don't want to live in third-rate housing. They want to live in first class, and they'll pay for it. And they may be riding the bus to a high-paying job that's located in New York.
I mean, I really think that is the case with so, you know, you could cater to millennials certainly with the transit, but with the number of folks who are kids go off to college and, hey, you know what, let's downsize our property tax bill at the same time and be in a place where we can walk to dinner is something that I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yes, and they often with those empty nesters, I think, in Cranford has certainly seen this in spades, is they want to live in an elevator service building, they want some level of luxury accommodation, they may shed a car, so that works in your favor because you really want people that are walking more than anything. As I always say in Metuchen, we don't want to attract 3-car households to the downtown. There's plenty of places for them. And what we are getting is we're seeing 1-car households, and I think even with bus transit, if packaged correctly and promoted correctly.
But you need the apartments, and the expectations of these apartments have to be, as you point out rightfully, Metuchen, Cranford. These are pretty nice looking apartments.
Yes, luxury quality.
Luxury quality.
And with amenities. They are not. They are ones that folks that have spent their life in the community raising kids would consider downscaling to.
Right, exactly.
To live right in the heart of town, keeps their banking and their house of worship and their investment in the community here.
Not the starter apartment that your college graduate would be interested in.
No.
That's a good point.
But you may need some of that as well.
You need some of that as well.
Absolutely, I think you need the mix, right?
For the artists.
Does anybody else have a question? I think this was really great. Obviously you impressed us enough, with your short presentation the last time to come back. I think most of us are very familiar with some of the successes you've had locally, which is what attracted us to wanting to ask you to come back. I guess, Mr. Mirabella, at some point, this council will, revisit your ideas, your proposal, because I guess we need to see a proposal. Maybe we need to define ourselves a little better in terms of your opening volley. What do you want me to do? Okay, because I'm one who just doesn't want to spend money and we don't have an outcome. And we don't have a driven force to make that outcome a reality. So I guess that's step 2.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Let me just wrap up this portion of the meeting and then we can close it out. But so I mentioned before, and you weren't in the room at the time, Jim, that there's another firm that has emerged to contemplate, to have them come and talk to us. Wallace, Roberts, and Todd. They did some work for us many, many years ago. We had an opportunity, the mayor and I, to speak with this firm. And my expectation is to have them come into a similar kind of meeting, have some conversation with them, and then in the September meeting, just to set expectations properly, I'll make a recommendation with the consent of council to move forward. So it's really short order. There's high urgency on putting this vision of this council together with a plan and have somebody help us drive the process. I think everybody's convinced that we need a full-blown plan and studies and stuff. I think we have a pretty good idea of the direction that things want to go in. And I think it's time for us to make that move, to hire a professional, have them drive the process and move forward. So, I think this has been very helpful. I think the first presentation was really good too. So there's a lot to consider with this group. And, but I think we have urgency. We want to move forward very quickly.
Now with that, I want to, before we adjourn, because we're going to go into a conference meeting shortly, but I'd like to invite anyone from the public. We didn't have anybody at the beginning of the meeting, and we did have a public comment section. If there's somebody that would like to come forward and ask a question of the governing body, by all means, please come forward, state your name and address, and I would ask that you ask a question specific to this topic.
Carolyn Perkins, Westfield Road, Scotch Plains. I wasn't here at the very beginning, but I do like your comments of getting the input of the residents who live here. because they do have a stake in this. And the seniors, I often feel, are kind of on the back burner, but also several families have mentioned there's really not a youth center for our youth. They hang out at the Quick Check, and it would be very nice to somehow incorporate a youth center. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming out and coming forward. Would someone else like to come forward?
Tom Reed, 2nd Street, Scotch Plains.
Good to see you again, Mr. Reed.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to find out, you know, any downtown area requires, to start off with, you need people. Okay.
Here, here.
And what are this gentleman touched on a couple of things. One thing about housing and foot traffic, and can you live in a community without a car? Do you have a place where you can shop? Can you buy vegetables? Can you buy boxed goods and so on? And you know, we don't have that here in town. At present, it couldn't happen. Okay. We do have the farmer's market that comes in, but nobody would go into that business now because you'd have to be paying taxes and the town is subsidizing your competitor. But
Right.
that's not what I'm here to talk about. I just wanted to mention that, you know, we do need to focus on how are we going to develop a town and create people who live within walking distance. You know, one thing that I would suggest, we've had a number of affairs, and we've got the car show and so on, is to have people do small interviews and ask people, where'd you come from? Did you walk here? Did you drive here? Where'd you park the car? How many cars do you have? Did you and your wife meet here and you have 2 cars in our limited parking? Or, you know, or that, but to find out, like, how much of our population it comes to these different events, whether it be the movies, theaters, or the plays, or everything that the town's doing a good job putting together, but where is the population coming from? Are they only coming from a small 200 yards or you know, 1,000 feet? It's only the people who live right in the immediate area, on the north side of town, and that's it? Or, but to get a better understanding of where our population is going to come, that's going to feed this downtown area. You know, our 2 biggest properties are on the corners of our business district, Snuffy's and Jade Isle. You know, when you look at that L shape that we've discussed in other meetings. But
Tom, I think that's an excellent idea. You know, as I go probably to every one of these events, I ask, okay? But I think you're right. It's the answer. Something might be sitting right out in front of us, right on our nose, and we're not capturing it. Because I've got to tell you, we've had people at the concert the other night that were visiting from Brazil. There was a woman came over to me from Bridgewater. I mean, I've got to tell you, we bring folks in from Metuchen. Our farmers market goes everywhere from North Plainfield to Westfield to Metuchen to come because we have the best farmers market. But maybe it's something we've got to focus on capturing some of that information as well, because we've had good success. And by the way, I personally want to thank you for stepping up for the car show this week.
Sure.
I mean, that's going to be, as Mr. Mirabella pointed out, if the weather holds up, probably the biggest event we've had in town outside of Scotch Plains Day. So thank you for providing the grand prize. Thank you, gentlemen. And by the way, you know, Tom, just another point. Your comments months ago, I still have a photo that you shared with us of that bus terminal.
well, I think that would be a key.
And I think we talk about that. I know Mr. Mirabella and I've talked about it in terms of identifying an asset that, you know, we don't, and I think the deputy mayor spoke to it before as well.
You get back on, you might even get a Starbucks.
We might even get it. I'm going to call Howard Schultz. You think I'm kidding?
Well, I think that's the.
Listen, I've done crazier things.
I know you're not kidding.
He knows I'm not kidding. I've already scribed a letter.
If you look at where the Starbucks are, it puts you in a different category.
Let me tell you something. I don't listen. All I can say is I rule out nothing. You know, our township had an amazing article that I hope everyone got to see. I guess, Mr. Mirabella, we should share it. You know,
Yeah.
You've had some input to that. I did.
Yeah.
You know, let me tell you something. We've got a lot going on in Scotch Plains. We need to mine it for the downtown now.
Well, that transit, that bus, you probably got about 400 commuters a day who are going to the city by bus. They're just scattered over 18 different stops.
Well, right up to Mountain Avenue. But thank you, because we did keep that, and we have continued to discuss that. So, see, folks who come to the mic, comments, don't go ignore it. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Seeing no one else coming forward, I'd like a motion to adjourn, what I consider to be a pretty good
Mayor, I'd like
exchange
to
of
make
ideas.
a motion to adjourn the
Is there a
meeting.
second? All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned.